Hello everyone and welcome to Module 6, Non-Consequential Ethical Theories. So last week you applied act utilitarianism to our case and you got the consequential outcome through act utilitarianism that would create the most amount of good for the most amount of people involved. You took a mathematical approach to happiness versus unhappiness and you got a decision for the case. What we're going to do this week is very much the same that we did last week. We're going to apply another theory in the same three-step method that we did last week, only this will be the non-consequential theory of Kant's Denotology. The object of this is to get the outcome that isn't based on the consequence, as we know from the text, and is more agent-centered, and so we'll see how the two options compare to one another. Don't be surprised if they're different. They, in a sense, should be because we're applying different theories, okay? So what you're going to do this week is the same three-step module assignment you did last week, okay? You're going to have a Dropbox assignment that's due Sunday by 11:59 p.m., and it builds off of the case that we've been doing so far. So what you did 2 weeks ago is you came up with your options, your stakeholders, and how they would be affected by each option. Last week you applied act utilitarianism, and so this week we're moving on to the next step, which is to apply Kant's Deontology. Remember, if I told you to make changes in Module 4 to your options or whatever, and you still haven't, you need to change them in this assignment, or you need to change them well if you have based off the last one, okay? So because we want to make sure there's a consistency to we're applying the same option, the same theories to the same option, okay? So it starts the same. We have a discussion where you have 6 to 8 sentences where you're going to explain, summarize Kant's theory and how it's applied. You're going to cite the textbook throughout this paragraph in text. If you don't cite the textbook, you're going to be penalized heavily because that's plagiarism. Because you didn't write the theory, you're borrowing somebody else's thoughts on the theory. So you need to document that appropriately. If you have any questions on that, please ask me either in class or via email and we'll get it sorted out, okay? But by the end of that paragraph, the casual reader who doesn't know about the theory should understand how the theory is developed and how it's applied to a case. So the more detail, the better, okay? In step 2, you're going to apply Kant's theory with the two-step process of universality and respect for persons. And then in the concluding paragraph, which is going to be 5 to 7 sentences, you're going to state the best option or options, because in Kant you may get more than one, and explain how a true Kantian would come to the conclusion of what's best and describe the results of applying universality and respect for persons. Okay, as usual, I have an example for you down here in the module. We're going to take a look at that because this is how yours should be presented for grading. And this is a downloadable Word document for you guys to use. So we have a nice APA title page. And then we get to our assignment. We have the assignment title here on page 2 as well. In 2A, and it's 2 because this is the second theory we're applying. The last one was 1A last week, right? Discuss Kantian ethics in one good paragraph, 6 to 8 sentence. Mention key concepts, terms, and ideas of the theory. Discuss the application process of the theory and paraphrase and cite as you go, just like I said, okay? In section 2B, we're going to restate our central ethical question, that should or what should question we developed for the case. Then you're going to list possible options. And I want you to do it just like this. Put this heading, label them 1 through 4, and then write out the 4 options. Please use full sentences. Don't just give me 2 or 3 words. I'll mark you down for that. I want a full explanation so the casual reader would know exactly what you meant. So on the chart, when you wrote do nothing, we need to be a little more specific here. Bob could do nothing about such and such problem, right? Write it out as a full sentence. Then you're going to have a heading here that says apply universality. This stuff here in the brackets is just to tell you what to do. But, you definitely don't want to have that in your paper. So anything that's in brackets, you want to cut that out. what you're going to do is you're going to list 1 through 4, and you're going to fill in your options. So Bob could fill in option 1, right? So Bob could do nothing about his wife cheating on him. And then right after that, write this same exact thing. Would I want all people consistently, universally to, and then you fill in the action of the option, to not do anything when their spouse cheats on them. Okay? That makes sense? And that's a question, so we end that with a question mark. So, to recap, it'll say Bob could do nothing about his wife cheating on him. Would I want all people consistently, universally to do nothing when their spouse cheats on them? Then you're going to answer yes or no and state your rationale. Me, I would probably say no and say ignoring, cheating in a relationship is not a universal rule I would want all to follow, okay? You'll see here that this is the example, and this is how I want you guys to do it. Any deviation from this is going to cost you points. Do not feel bad about repeating it word for word. I want you to do that because this is how it's applied, okay? So in this example here, Greg could study for the exam. Would I want all people consistently, universally to study? Yes. And then put rationale and bold it just like this. Studying, learning is a moral rule I would want all to follow. Makes sense? So pretty straightforward. The action there is studying, and we're saying that studying is a universal rule we would want all to follow. Okay? Then you do the same for option 2. And we have another example with Greg. Greg could cheat on the exam. Would I want all people consistently, universally to cheat? No. Rationale. Cheating is not a moral rule I would want all to follow. It's that simple. It's all you have to put, okay? And you do that for all 4 of your options. So you're going to apply universality to option 3, and then you're going to apply universality to option 4, okay? Then you're going to put a heading here that says apply respect for persons, okay? And what you're going to do there is it says here, you need to follow this format. Don't make up any other format. You'll lose points. But only apply right here, respect for persons, to options that pass universality. Sorry, apparently I can't highlight as well as I want to with this. But that part's important. Only apply respect for persons to the options that pass universality. Because as you'll see in the text and as we'll talk about in class, an option has to pass both universality and respect for persons to be a good option under Kant's theory. If it fails one of those, we're not taking it as an option. So if we go back up here for Greg, we said that Greg cheating was not universal. So we're not going to bring number 2 down. We don't have to worry about that, okay? All you're going to do is bring down the options or option, if it's just one, that applies, right? And I want you to keep that original numbering scheme. So if you eliminate number 1, I shouldn't see a number 1 down here, okay? Just bring down the numbers that made it and keep them the same, okay? So Bob could fill in option 1 again, right? Is Bob exploiting any person with this decision? So what we want to know here is if there's an exploitation of a person, okay? If the answer is no, if there's nobody being exploited, we say no, so this is a good option. That's all you need. Students traditionally try to explain why there's exploitation or not and go into these elaborate. We're not looking for that. Just, is there an exploitation? Yes or no? No, this is a good option. Yes, this is not a good option. Okay? So, as you'll see in the text and as we'll talk about in class, respect for persons says that a person cannot be used as a means, that's a tool, only to an end, which is a goal. And that applies for the decision maker themselves. So a lot of people in respect for persons miss the exploitation of self. So a decision maker is not allowed to sacrifice them own selves, their own happiness, whatever, to make other people happy, or even themselves. So somebody who's a heroin addict, they're exploiting themselves because while that's a personal decision they make, they're using themselves as a tool to the happiness. Do you see what I'm saying? So you can exploit yourself and you can exploit others. What Kant wants is there to be some sort of mutual benefit in all exchanges between people and ourselves. So if there's not a mutual benefit, if somebody's being taken advantage of, we say no, and so this is not a good option. Okay? So going back up to that Greg example, Greg could study for the exam. Is Greg exploiting anyone for this decision? No, so this is a good option because, yes, he's sacrificing his time to study, but the outcome is getting a good grade on the test, so it's a mutually beneficial, okay? Greg could cheat on the exam. Obviously, it didn't come down from Universal, but if some way it did, there would be an exploitation because he's exploiting himself, his values, his morals, and the potential to get in trouble to do that. So if there's an exploitation, we say, yes, there's exploitation, so this is not a good option. Does that make sense? And so you would then apply respect to all options remaining, if there are, and then when you're done with that, same thing as last week, 2C, write one good paragraph, 5 to 7 sentences explaining the Kantian resolution. Start with if Bob were a Kantian, he would, and then fill in the best options to take. And then the rest of the paragraph should defend the best decision or decisions, because remember, there could be a couple. So keep in mind, the best decision you choose has to pass both tests. So please don't propose an option down here that failed one of those tests. Because a good Kantian decision must both be universal and not exploit anyone for the decision maker's gain, okay, including themselves. And if you have more than one good option, please feel free to pick the one that you think's best, because we're going to narrow that down to a couple options in the final part of this project. So, while they're all good, if you want to pick one that you think is most good, I don't have a problem with that, okay? In fact, I would even encourage it, okay? And then, again, we're going to have the references page with a proper APA citation to the textbook. Okay, so real simple. Part A, summarize the theory and how it's applied, citing the textbook throughout. Part B, apply universality and respect to persons to all your options. Part C, identify the best options for a Kantian to take, and then you're done, okay? Then you'll submit it to the Dropbox, and you're done with this section of the assignment. If you have any questions between now and then, please ask in class or email me. But for now, go ahead and get started, and good luck.